This is part 3 of a 3-part podcast.
Hi, this is Mark. There are a lot of reasons to get angry these days, but I prefer to focus on the positive things that we each can do to make this world a better place. The book, Building a Better World in Your Backyard, Instead of Being Angry at Bad Guys, is a great resource for just that. Instead of throwing my arms up in frustration at governments or big corporations, there's a list of ideas that we each can tackle to affect change. Information about this book and other resources can be found at permies.com.
I'm just sitting here thinking about the fact that, the more I've thought about as you're giving me a little more information about exactly what you did. I had not seen some of the little details you had done inside the barrel, like, the little pipe and so forth. It's almost like what you've ended up doing is you've created a very specific type of enclosed, passively aerated static pile, right? That is doing a very slow. And you kept the moisture low enough that the whole process is very slow and steady, so that when you get done, I'd be really fascinated to see under those conditions how much, what your bacterial to fungal ratio is, because under those conditions of static, then you aren't turning it, which means that saprophytic fungi could establish. And we see in something like Johnson Sioux, which is a passively aerated static pile of a different blend. It's a different blend, but we see that over the course of a year, it becomes very biodiverse in fungi. It's like the diversity of fungi goes way, way up. So I'd be really fascinated to see the finished product and see if there is a wide diversity of different saprophytic fungi or whether it's fungally dominant. That's just a fascinating thing, because it would also tell us about what kind of decomposition is happening and validate how it was happening.
Well, I enjoy the idea that we get the first bits of information out, share what we have learned, and then other people can take it next level. But I think it's ready. I think right now we've gone far enough that it's ready to be. It's already ready to be superior to a sewage treatment plant, and so it's more than a contender with the other alternative systems. Okay, I want to try to cruise through our list of points to talk about in our thing today, because I think we're running low on time. One is poop beasts. So we have this phrase, poop beasts, and it's referring to how most species of plant, including most trees, we cannot do what you see in this picture. You cannot put that amount of material anywhere near a tree. It will just die. But there are a few species that we call poop beasts that are like, nom, 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 give me more. And at the top of the list is the willow tree. But the next two that we talk about all the time is poplars and cottonwoods. They're not as hungry, but they're up there. And they generally won't die with that amount. They'll eat it. They'll take it. Now, at the same time, there are other species of things that will gladly take up excessive levels of nutrient and be glad with it. But most of my brain is tied into stuff that is edible, but I'm choosing to not do edible. So I would say that one other species to throw into the mix would be bamboo. I mean, grasses, look how happy those grasses are. Grasses are grooving on it. And as long as it's not producing a grain that people want to eat, then people are eating grass. So it's not, and bamboo, of course, is a type of grass. So I'd say all forms of grasses are going to thoroughly enjoy the willow candy. Now, I want to say stinging nettle, but you can eat stinging nettle. And so I'm kind of like, okay, well then don't do that. And then, of course, I would say, because the other thing is to make a mulch pit near your willow feeder, surrounded by willow trees, And you could put your food plants there, which would include the stinging nettles and rhubarb. And you could even go so far as to plant squash or melon plants. They are very hungry. They're big nutrient feeders. So I kind of feel like this is the beginning of a giant area to discuss what kinds of plants you might choose to plant that are poop beasts. And then if it's something urine involved, then you can use your food plants there. No harm there. But if it's going to be something that's going to be poop involved, well, we've eliminated all the pathogens. It is perfectly safe, but I think that having an additional layer of indirection helps to keep the crazy away. Because I cannot help but think that, crazy people will lose their shit. Well, I keep trying to not say own your own shit, and that's a shitty idea. I've been trying really hard. So they will come unglued.
Paul, everything you're saying is like all of the options you've given, which seem really logical. They are really great for, let's say, homestead scale, smaller scale permaculture installation. So agree. Then it's like, given this is maybe a Stephen question. Stephen, if I told you needed to put this into a manure, like a compost spreader, and spread it with a thin layer over, say, a silvopasture system, right? So I've got tree crops and then I've got pasture underneath it, and so forth. And I had hundreds of acres of silvopasture, and I needed you to spread this material across that in a nice application instead of it being piled up in one big pile. How workable do you feel that would be?
Provided you have the equipment to make it happen, I think it's totally approachable. I do.
Okay, so now all of a sudden we have another option for scaling up, right? Which is like, I could have thousands of acres of productive silvopasture. I could apply this as fertilizer to the grasses, wait a certain period of time for those grasses to process it, and then bring ruminants across it and have production out of the ruminants. Now I've got my level of indirection. I could then also, by spreading it more thinly, I could be feeding productive tree crops like nut crops and so forth, because I'm not piling it all up in one place right next to one tree. So maybe that's another option that could be explored as a way of utilizing the output of a willow feeder system.
Okay. I want to expand on that for about an hour, but I'm going to not. We're running. I got so many other things I want to talk about. So one is with the willow feeder, we have eliminated flies. Flies are controlled at all stages. And then the next thing is that we've also controlled any pathogens going to the groundwater. I think that these are critically important things. So like we've done better than a sewage treatment plant at controlling flies and controlling poop Kool-Aid going to the drinking water, which I think that is an incredibly powerful metric. I want to touch upon the idea of a dry outhouse really quick. And so with a regular outhouse, the idea is that poop and urine go into the pit, and then eventually that material finds its way down into the drinking water. And on top of that, most of the ways that they are built is something where flies might be able to have access to that material as well. So I like the idea of basically taking the best that we have of a willow feeder, but we put it into a pit below the building that is where you got an element of fly control. And then you still have the urine diverter going out to a mulch pit. And you've surrounded this building with willow trees. So in time, those willow trees will find the material underneath the dry outhouse and start going om nom 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 nom. It is plausible that that pit will never fill because the willow trees keep pulling that material away. And at the same time, the material that's in there for a couple of different reasons will never reach the groundwater. One is because we've done a urine diverter thing, so then there's no liquid driving the material down. We've also put the dry outhouse on a bit of a mound, so any rain that comes is taken at least 10 or 15 feet away from the building. So that way we don't have water entering into the pit and taking the material down to the drinking water. And so this is the concept of a dry outhouse, but it's, an outdoor thing. And we haven't built one yet, but it's in the deck of cards, and it is a thing that I talked about long before the deck of cards came out. And so one of these days I like the idea of giving it a try. Another thing to touch on, sawdust versus wood ash. And so I think that, first of all, I'm going to say sawdust. You could do exclusively wood ash if you wanted to. If a person wanted to, the wood ash is very effective at controlling smells and helping to desiccate what's there. I think wood chips are better, but I also want to say never do both. Alan, why never do both?
Well, the wood chips can be extremely alkaline. And
okay.
Yeah.
So can the wood ash.
I'm sorry. The wood ash will be extremely alkaline. Sorry, I said that backwards.
Can be. It varies dramatically, but it can be.
Can be. That's because you can make lye from that, right? So
there you go. There it is. There it is. I would never put sawdust or wood chips or any kind of high carbon material like that with wood ash because that's the recipe for making lye.
Yes.
And so I would never use both. I would use one or the other, but never both. In fact, because I want it to, I'm a little worried that the material that you're putting into the willow candy can, along with wood ash, that it might get mucky and it might not be able to be aerobic. Whereas I think that the sawdust and wood chips will help it to remain aired out. It'll help to create air gaps. So I think sawdust is better than wood ash. But I think everybody's got to choose one or the other and not both.
Yeah, lye that is dry is quite dangerous in the sense that when you combine it with water, it is a very exothermic reaction.
Yeah.
And it can be quite hazardous. If you've ever done soap making where you have to rehydrate the lime, that's the most dangerous step right there is when really dry lye gets in contact with water. It's like, it can start actually boiling the water and splattering all over the place if you mix it too fast. It's not something to play with. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's avoid that. Even accidental like. Next up, a mulch pit. So Art Ludwig is emphatically in favor of mulch pits whenever doing gray water systems. And so I regret that the permaculture playing card is about gray water showing a gray water tank. I regret that. I wish I had laid out a mulch pit instead. Further, after we created the greenhouse here, I did a bunch of research, like 20 hours of research, and I came up with how if you've got a mulch pit surrounded by willow trees, well, the willow trees are still active. They are still biologically active all winter long. They're just less biologically active. And so even though they've dropped all their leaves through the winter, they're still their root system is still active. Now, the cool thing is that if you've got a mulch pit surrounded by willow trees and the roots are in there in the middle of all those wood chips, if you get to fall, then I'm going to say a thing that is not true, but we'll pretend. It's like the Disney version. It goes like this. The willow trees took every little piece of sawdust and wood chip and licked it clean. And now when you go into the wintertime and you add more material there, that carbon that the wood chips and the sawdust will hold on to all of your nutrient content. So the willow tree will still be actively trying to lick all that material clean all winter long. But if it's more than it can do, then when spring comes around, it'll finish polishing all of that high carbon material. And so basically what I'm trying to say is that a gray water system that is a mulch pit is going to be remarkably awesome all year long. Unlike a drain field on a septic tank. It's the bacteria that are active there are, pretty good, but they don't do a perfect job. They don't do as good of a job as a mulch pit with willow trees. Alan, would you agree with that?
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is that in your analogy is that the willow tree pays the bacteria and fungi to go out and do the licking for it in most cases and then bring all the goodies back. So it's like, this is one of the things about the symbiosis with the soil food web is like that, instead of building all the little tiny root hairs required to get to every surface of everything, it's decided to outsource to a workforce, which are the microbes in the soil. So the microbes in the soil do a lot of that work and then exchange that back to the roots of the willow tree. So what we know is that there's a lot of that activity that continues to happen over winter below the frost line, especially in areas where you get snow cover, and the snow cover insulates a little bit, and you'll get a lot of saprophytic action happening under snow cover in temperate zones. So it is going on through the year. It's just you got to make certain that if you're continuing to dump into a mulch pit in the wintertime, you've got to have enough depth in the mulch pit to make certain that it doesn't freeze solid all the way down. You got to have the depth to be able to handle it. So it's really easy to do in a place like where you see these like gray water permitted widely, like in Arizona and Southern California. And I work with gray water systems there, and you can use very shallow mulch pits. As you get into colder and colder regions, it takes a little more thought as to how to deal with that, the freezing problem in the wintertime.
Agreed. All right, next up, the willow feeders we have here now. So there are 4 that are done and usable. Some of them need a little, could use a little improvement still. And there's one that is, would you say, half built? It's like it's mostly there.
The frame is there.
Okay.
The frame is there.
Okay.
Thank you, Clay.
Yeah. Okay. So what is that? What are you calling that one there?
The poo with a view.
Poo with a view.
It has this really fantastic window built into it right now.
All right. So outside of that one, we have 4 that have a lot of mileage on them. We've even pulled a lot of cans out of all of them. And so the first one we ever built was called the Chateau des Poux, and that one is up by Allerton Abbey. It took us, and this is I'm gonna say a thing. It took us 3 months to build. The next willow feeder we built, which is Willow Bank, it took us 2 days to build. So just because it took us 3 months doesn't mean it's going to take everybody else 3 months. I think that the part of the 3 months is that we went and we took down a couple of western larch trees and we hacked them up into shakes. And so it's got a shake roof on it. And I got to tell you that Western larch shakes are not as handsome and predictable and steady as cedar shakes. But it took us a while to build, but we kind of went a little overboard on, how we went about building it. It's been through 2 rounds of improvements. The trom wall on it could use an overhaul. And in this particular one, it has 2 holes in it and 1 spare can. One hole has a urine diverter and the other hole does not. And I think it's important for people to know that most fellas, when they are sitting there and they're about to poop, they can choose to not pee, which is going to sound crazy to most women. And most women, when they're pooping, they're peeing. There's just no control over it. That's the way it is. And there are, of course, exceptions to both cases. And then inside where we got the 2 holes, we had the 2 holes so that one side has a urine diverter, and the other side does not, so that if you're a fella, then you're not touching the urine diverter. let's say. But with Willow Wonka, our 3rd willow feeder, we have a much bigger distance between the can and the seat. So we have a more elaborate, deeper urine diverter in there. And that just has 1 hole now. So the Chateau des Poux is the original one, and I think it could use a lot more love. We need to get up there and do more with it. Willow Bank was built quickly, 2 days. It's been through 7 rounds of improvements. And it also has 2 holes and a spare can. It currently has a solar system with a fan to help make the box have lower air pressure than the area that that people are in. So that way it makes sure that the smell is taken far away. I think a trom wall would be better, mostly because batteries eventually need to be replaced and people tend to not want to do it. And so if you've got a trom wall, it will last basically forever. So that's what makes me think a trom wall would be better. A neat thing about Willow Bank is how it's got the marbles mounted in the wall. So when there's a sunrise, the sun hits the marbles, and it's a pretty cool effect. It's the only one where we've done that. I think it's pretty cool. Willow Wonka it was built. It's a roundwood timber framing project, but it's still on skiddable skids, so you can move it around. We've moved it around many times. In fact, the Chateau des Poux has been moved 3 or 4 times. It's also on skids. And look, I think that's the Chateau des Poux getting moved right there in that picture. Willow Bank is also on skids. I moved it once. So I built Serviceberry Terrace and I moved Willow Bank. I did it, as opposed to almost everything. I rarely do anything around here, but that was one thing I did do, is I moved Willow Bank up onto Serviceberry Terrace. There's Willow Bank. Next to the
Moon Gate.
The Moon Gate, yeah. So Willow Wonka has 1 hole and 2 spare cans. The skids that were put on it were way too small, and so we had to prop it up on one side and take the old skids off and put new skids on it. So now it's got new skids. But I think that the roundwood that was done on it was pretty cool. Let's see. Oh, and the other thing is that Willow Wonka has a raised floor in it, and I think that makes it much more comfortable. The Chateau des Poux and Willow Bank have things where you go in and the seat's way up high and there's something to put your feet on while you're sitting there. It works, but it's not as luxuriant as Willow Wonka. And finally,
I know, Paul, you're going to throw something at me for bringing this up, but we've got to eventually build one of these as a reference that's fully accessible, ADA compliant, so I can have a reference for that, because anything I'm going to do today that I'm going to put in new has to, in a more permitted location, I need to be able to make it ADA compliant. So we need to eventually show how to make this beautiful in an ADA compliant space.
I think that I agree. I think that I look forward to seeing what people come up with.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, again, I can't do everything for everybody.
Agreed.
I think we've come a long ways in the fact that we're sharing all of this for free, and so much of everything we do we share for free. It's kind of like we can only do so much. Which, by the way, those of you that have an extra $100, go put $100 into the BEL fund, and that way we'll get more boots here, and that'll improve our overall forward velocity. And for people that are thinking about joining the boot camp, hey, there's money.
So okay. Paul, the way I look at it is like your job is to do all the crazy next generation alpha testing, alpha development, and so forth. And then I kind of come in and scratch my head and say, this is what it's going to take for us to be able to take this and get it going forward, scaled up, and so forth. And then all the listeners, your job is to jump on board and help us make that reality at some point, because we got to get it. We got to take what Paul is spending so much time and effort to do and pick it up and run with it at some point, right? It's and then so that Paul can continue to go in and innovate at the front, the leading edge, but we got to figure out that step so it can become adopted, and that can't be all Paul's job.
I think a big thing too is when you got raw land, before you can build a shitty shack to live in, you got to come up with something where you can poop. Otherwise things will be very bad. And so this was when we first arrived. This is the very first thing we worked on building. We didn't even start building Allerton Abbey until the Chateau des Poux was built. And so, in fact, for probably a year, 2 years, it was just called the Willow Feeder until somebody named it. And but by then we had two Willow Feeders, and there was Willow Bank, and then there's the Willow Feeder up at the lab, and then they gave it the name Chateau des Poux. But when you got raw land, this is the first thing you need to do. So that's what we did. All right. Next up, Cooper Pooper. This is an indoor willow feeder. In this example, we do not have a trom wall. It is a solar system connected to a fan, and I don't know if we could ever do a trom wall there. I think it will always be a solar system with a fan.
In that particular building, the bathroom is at the not sunward side. It's on the north. It's the northeast corner, or it faces the northeast. So you'd have to be pretty inventive about using some kind of powered fan to move the air out of there. Yeah. So, but I think that it is working extremely well. It's our fourth willow feeder, and I think it's doing great.
Hey, this is T. Blankenship. Are you a fan of Pi? Where there's Pi at Permies.com. This Pi grants the user secret access. You also get free things like videos of Wheaton Labs, the ability to add 2 thumbs up to posts, and more. To get Pi, go to Permies.com/Pi to get the inside scoop of what Pi can do for you. Again, that is Permies.com/Pi.
I think that Clay is here, and Clay has put some time into helping to build some of these. I know I see Samantha is here, and I know that she has put some time into, making deposits at Willow Bank. So, I feel like, how about this? Clay, you've been mighty quiet this whole time. Do you have anything to add at this time?
Well, I see some comments about the indoor willow feeder, and Cooper Pooper is a great example. The only thing you can see in the image Andres has up there, it would be awesome if in an indoor design you had like a door in like right where that window is. That way that you could take the can immediately outside and didn't have to bring it through the structure of your house. I do think that, there are benefits to a powered fan. But I think on the whole, I'm probably with you, Paul, on the idea that a no maintenance system like a Trom wall is better on the whole. And I think that, it minimizes the human factor of needing to replace a battery or what happens when the bearings on that fan go bad. You've talked about the flies and making sure that your box is built appropriately to prevent flies from getting in there, and creating a vacuum effect, a negative pressure zone, and having that airflow rather than, it's been talked about before a lot on the forums, but if you're sitting in a bathroom, you encounter smells which are unfortunate. Whereas when you go in the willow feeder, if the box has been built properly, the air goes down and you never encounter any of your own smells. I think that that's a great attribute that this system really wins. There's a lot of positives, and yes, Alan had mentioned the alpha testing, and now we're ready for some beta testers. I think that if you're considering building this on your property, I say go for it and document what you do and share that so we can all learn and improve. It's something that I'm considering for 2025 is building one for myself. I live in a 1-bath house, and there are 2 people, and sometimes I'd like the ability to go at the same time, and that's just not feasible. And so, having something like that, maybe out by my garden, out by my workshop, like that would be a benefit to me, and I think a lot of folks can empathize there.
You bring up an excellent point that I never even thought to write down today, and we got to make sure to, get that out everywhere. And that is the whole thing about the smell. With a conventional toilet, which includes almost all of the alternatives, there, it's not so much, you're saying like your own smell. I'm kind of thinking about the smell of others. In fact, I think that there are some women who want to paint a picture that they never poop. And so it's like, but then, if you happen to go in right after they've left, there's evidence. No. And so, but with a willow feeder, there's no smell because the air, where you make your deposit, the air pressure in there is lower than the room that you're in. And so all of the airflow is to go into the place where you're sitting, and then none of that smell comes out. So it actually smells better than I would say the more conventional systems and the alternatives. I'm glad you brought that up. So so before I go on, I've got just a couple of more things on my list here. But Samantha, you've been very patient here. Do you have anything to add at this time?
I would say what you said about the smell. That's one of my favorite things about a willow feeder is it doesn't smell. I'm not gonna sink up the bathroom and be embarrassed about who comes in next. And I don't smell whoever was there. I also really appreciate the fact that it's not water. You know, like this might be kind of gross, but I don't like having the toilet like splash on me, and this doesn't do that. So I think it's better in both of those ways.
Ooh, good point.
Have we talked about ladies in their moon time?
It's on the list, and we haven't quite gotten there yet.
Oh wait, that's all right.
In fact, Stephen went out and took pictures today so that we can talk about that a little bit. And so the next item on my list to talk about is the Willow Candy Warehouse, a simple structure that we have up at the lab.
Mm-hmm.
We just take the cans and we mark on them the day it was closed, and it says...
And 2 years later, open after blah, blah, blah. So if it was January 1st, 2024, then we'll say open after January 1st, 2026.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
And so then we just set the cans in there,
mm-hmm.
and then when spring rolls around, we pull the cans out that are ready, and we introduce them to a willow tree.
Yep.
And I don't know, 4 at a time or so.
That's fair to say. Yeah.
So pretty simple structure. It's got a roof, and then all the cans have the ability to basically breathe. There it is. And so, in fact, that's when we were trying to like store a bunch of other wood.
Oh, that's the warehouse. Yeah.
Yeah. Under the eave a little bit, like, oh, where can we store this wood where it can stay kind of dry?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, let's stick it in here. I think only one time we had a problem where a bear pulled a can down.
Yeah.
And
that's right. Yeah, that was like a late spring when that happened one year.
Yeah, it's like, boy, that bear is desperate for entertainment. So
a question here while we've got the warehouse up, kind of going back to Alan's point about scalability. Stephen and Paul, has the warehouse ever been full and where you didn't have a spot to put a can?
The quick answer to that is yes. Yeah, we've had it was again like at the end of summer events when we've had a lot of people jump in. There has been one can that has set outside of the regular structure, so we'll just lean it up to put onto the not the front porch, but the front landing of the warehouse. And then as soon as we can, we would rotate that in, in March. We would take some cans out of there as soon as the ground starts to thaw out and the plants are going to be waking up. We'll get as many cans as we can out of the warehouse and then put that one on the shelf. So we have to rotate the cans around based on the date that they become available. So we would probably take a whole bunch out. Eventually, we'll take a whole bunch out, shove that newest one in the back. And while we're doing the rearranging, we'll say, okay, which cans can come out right now? So I'm thinking early March is when we would start putting the cans out near the trees.
When we pull the cans out, they're generally at least 2 years old, mm-hmm. and sometimes as much as more than 3 years old. And because we missed one last year.
Yeah, it could be tucked in the back. It's easy to miss them. Yeah.
And so, and then of course, as Alan pointed out, you probably knock that back to a year, and it's like, oh yeah, you could probably knock that back to 3 months. And then, the warehouse would be much easier, but it's like, I kind of want to, like Alan says, I would want to see the numbers on the pathogens, before being cool with that. Mm-hmm. But I think that, a year would be probably as safe. Like it would be difficult to measure a difference in pathogens between 1 year and 2 years, I believe. Alan, would you agree with that analysis?
Yeah, and to me, it's like there's 2 dimensions we're looking at. One is getting rid of the pathogens. The other is effectively breaking down and composting so that, as Stephen was saying, when he's opening it up, he's not seeing little poop bundles and sawdust. He's actually seeing a consolidated product. And so there's 2 time periods. There's one is under the conditions we've got, how long till there's no pathogens. There's also how long to get effective processing so that when you open it up, you've got a product that is consolidated and effectively processed. And
my guess is that at 1 year, it'll probably look the same as 2 years in that respect. I would at 1 year, I want to measure the pathogen level. Whereas at 2 years, it's like, oh man, we are way beyond safe. And so,
yeah, I mean, I think it'd be really great to take one can that's a year old and then, put on a respirator, do the whole thing and open it up carefully, take a sample, also look at it to see how processed it is, and then take a sample and test it for pathogens. Just to kind of see and know where you were in a year, and it might be instructive to do that.
I think it's possible that somebody could get a grant that pays them to write that white paper, and it'll probably be something on the order of $30,000 or something, and more power to them. Come on down, do your tests, and we'll go about doing all of our other projects. But yeah, all right, moving on. In the winter, there can be stalagmites. And so, what we find is that when you hit a warmer day in the winter, you give that can a shake and the stalagmites will disappear. But, it's like, it is comical. Not on the indoor one.
Yeah, that doesn't occur.
Yeah, just on the ones that are outdoors where the temperatures can get well below freezing. And it's like, that is hilarious when it happens. But,
no, it's not.
So,
hilarious for somebody else, maybe. Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about Shark Week real quick. And so, once a month or so, and it all started when we had the very first willow feeders, or the first year we had them. And I had 8 different women approach me one at a time and ask me, what do I do? And so I kind of felt like I wish there was a woman that was living here that could have answered it for them, but they all felt like they needed to ask me. And so in the end, I, created a document and I, blah, 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 blah. All right. So the thing is that I, through this process, found out that there's like more than a dozen different ways that women deal with Shark Week. And so, and in fact, I think last year I learned a whole nother way that I had never heard of before. And the gal that was telling me about it, she went out and she bought these things that look like diaphragms, but they have a different name. I can't remember what they're called. And those went into all of the moon boxes. So, but the big thing is that the blood is fine, but commercial pads and tampons, we don't want those in there. But there are some that are considered biodegradable, and those are fine to put in there. Just like the toilet paper that's going in there is also biodegradable. So it's like, but yeah, there's a bunch of different things. There's sponges. There's Diva cups, and which case the blood just goes in, and then you wash it, and then you put that Diva cup right back in. And this other thing that looks like a diaphragm, but it's called something else. I can't remember what it's called. Kind of works like the Diva cup also. But there you go. And then some women use like just a bandana. So we do provide these moon boxes that are full of stuff for Shark Week that are more. They're all reusable. So the Diva cups last like 20 years or something. And these other things that are like the Diva cups also last a really long time. You just, empty it And then when Shark Week is over, then you just wash it and put it away. And there's apparently one of them has like a sterilizer up there or something. And you put it into the sterilizer and it'll sterilize it. I think that there's also a natural sponge. So there have been some women here where they've insisted that. So most of the stuff that's in there, I bought it because women said, buy this, buy this, buy this. And so I think we have 5 moon boxes here, maybe 6. And then they're all stocked with several different ways. And we're not saying put it back in. We're saying that if a woman comes and things, and it's like, oh no, grab whichever one of these things sounds best to you and keep it forever. Don't put it back in there. So there's that. On a similar note, Andreas, don't we have like a little video talking about a couple of different things that we play at this point? This is the moment. It's Jennifer, right, Andreas?
So now let's talk about Shark Week. So during Shark Week, some of us use products that actually absorb and contain the blood that are reusable, that you have to get the blood out to be able to reuse it. Doing so, you can put the blood right in the can, and that's perfectly fine. If it's something that just needs to be spritzed off, you can spritz it off with a little bit of water right into the can. If it's something that needs to be washed, you have to wash it in the sink. So we have our Shark Week guide that explains this, that the moon cups you can pour in there. Reusable pads, sponges, tampons, or lunar patties you could wring out into the can and then wash in the sink. Compostable pads or tampons are absolutely fine to throw in the can as long as they are biodegradable and compostable. So conventional feminine products we do not want in here. You would place in an appropriate container and throw into the trash so it can go to the landfill. Some things to know as a woman using a Willow feeder. The way the Willow feeder is designed is there's a urine diverter in the front where the urine goes and a can in the back where the Willow candy goes. But better than placing the urine in the urine diverter is placing the urine around the growies right outside. To do that, you can use a pea chute that's not only easy to use, but you can use it standing up, and it provides more privacy than even men have outside. Or you could use a pea pitcher or anything of the sort, because we'd rather the urine go right on the growies. That's preferred.
So I was the person who took care of the photographs of all those things, and there is a moon box in each of the Willow feeders that we have, and then we keep all of our extra supplies here at base camp. And then whenever somebody says, "Hey, we're running low on this or that or the other thing," we'll go ahead and refill it from there. There's also a sterilizer for whenever somebody has a reusable item. We have those here at base camp as well, and those are electricity powered, and just works you just set it inside the device, push a button or turn a dial, and then that sterilizes it for its next use.
Don't we have a bit of a video from Jennifer as well about women peeing here at Wheaton Labs?
You just missed it.
Oh, you guys played that part too. Okay, good.
Yeah, he just showed it.
Excellent. All right. Anything else about the 2 bits of video that you just saw? Anybody? No? Oh man, I think we're at the finish line. I think we covered everything. Has anybody got are there any questions that came up during all of this that we should address?
Didn't have a chance to see the
comments. Yeah, it's a little small. I haven't been able to read it.
Someone did just ask a question about, is there enough space in the Willow feeder for a woman to do all the noontime stuff? And I think your Willow feeder is provide ample space. There's bigger than a lot of nice bathrooms. So then there's plenty of space, and there's a sink inside that you can do whatever you need to do.
I agree. I think all the willow feeders, are pretty spacious on the inside. I think I've been to bathrooms that were like, normal bathrooms that were far more cramped than the willow feeders. Looks like there's a question. I was hoping to ask about inoculating the sawdust with lactobacillus to help fight the poop germs. Also help with the breakdown and smell. Well, I don't want it to break down, and we don't have any smell problems. And so plus adding any kind of bacteria, I think, is a hassle. I mean, here's another thing too, is I think somebody could take the willow feeder system and they could modify it in such a way that either it is a composting system, like an infinite composting system, and you could, it'll just never fill up. It's composting so fast. And that could be with bacteria or with worms or with black soldier fly larvae. However, as a gardener, I want to try to hang on to as much nitrogen and carbon as I can. So I choose to not do that. But I imagine that if it comes to this thing about adding, any kind of bacteria to the system for any reason whatsoever, I would think that either Alan agrees with me or he might have a slight variation. Alan, what are your thoughts?
Well, the labs are typically gram-positive anaerobes, so those are good. We use those in things like lactoferments, where the lactobacters and the acetobacters do a fermentation process, not a composting process, because a fermentation process is anaerobic and a composting process is aerobic. So typically what we work with when we're breaking things down in the composting process is what we call consortium biology, which is we bring in a whole host of different complementary species of fungi and many different varieties of bacteria, and allow them to do their work as a consortium. And so if you were going to inoculate with anything, it would be saprophytic aerobic organisms.
I think the important thing you just said is doo-doo. Sorry. Okay. What else we got? Anybody else got any questions?
The rest of the questions, I think they've been answered in the chat.
I think there's one that might be outstanding. Paul, we've talked about scaling up a lot. Can we talk about scaling down to say like a 1 or 2 person household? Some folks have mentioned a 5-gallon bucket as an option, and then like how long might that take to fill? Would you recommend a 5-gallon bucket, or do you like your 27-gallon trash can for all things? Thoughts?
I think a 5-gallon bucket is too small. I think that, we're currently doing the 27 gallons. I think 20-gallon might be edge case. It might be okay. But you got to get that tube in there. And then the tube has to be a certain size to facilitate drying out any liquids that might make their way to the bottom. And so I think that the great thing about the 27-gallon is that it's kind of, as it's drying, it's still breaking down. And it kind of, so it's like you're going to put, I'm going to speculate that you're going to put 100 gallons of material in there before that 27-gallon container is ready to be swapped out, because it just keeps breaking down as you're filling it. But if you've got a 5-gallon system, I mean, I think that the humanure people have proven that a 5-gallon bucket with one person it sounds like that's getting replaced once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And I've heard of homes with 2 people, and that's like generally 3 times a week. And it's like, I don't, and that's without having a tube in it. But then they're also collecting urine in there too. Human manure has urine, and that's another thing I haven't said is that. In fact, I want to run this by Alan, and I think I've asked him before, and I got no answer from him, and so no answer is acceptable. And so it goes like this. I think that urine is like Purina pathogen chow. And so I believe that when you mix the poop and the urine, I believe A, the smell is like 10 to 20 times stronger. And so you got more smell to deal with. And B, I am concerned that you're feeding the bacteria. So for example, when you go outside to pee, as the urine leaves your body, it is sterile. But then once it hits the soil, or if you even were to take it into an environment and someplace else and leave it out, the bacteria go ape shit with that urine and make all kinds of stinkums and whatnot. And so I believe that the urine, when you pee on soil, it feeds the organisms in the soil. Therefore, I am very concerned about mixing poop and pee together. Alan?
So yeah, I mean, urine is basically water with urea in it, right? So the 2 things you've got here is water, which is creating a higher moisture situation in which biology can be more active. So if you had a dry thing, now you've added some moisture, which means that the biology, whatever biology is there, can become more active. The urea is high in nitrogen. So that's why it acts as sort of like bacteria food, right? It's like the bacteria can grab a hold of that and process that. So when you mix urine with feces, what you've done is you've added even more nitrogen. It's a volatile nitrogen. It'll off-gas more quickly. But you also added more moisture, which can make the whole thing go anaerobic even faster. You've got, you can drive it anaerobic pretty quickly. And so now you've got more nitrogen and possibly moving towards anaerobic muck conditions. You're creating a mess, right? Which is why we say that especially in the tropics, a wet composting toilet is really, that's a real problem in the tropics where everything gets hot and the moisture is high already, and a wet composting toilet is just not the way to go at all. So that's kind of what I would say. If you're trying to keep it drier so that the biological breakdown process is slower and more controlled and aerobic, then you don't want to mix the urine in with you want a dry system, not a wet system.
Clay, to go back to Clay's original question about, like a small household, going to smaller buckets. Personally speaking, again, since I've changed out so many cans, I think that going to a smaller bucket system, apart from what Paul is talking about and not having the whole chemical process happening, I think it's just a smaller bucket is going to make it more labor intensive. I don't see the reason to go to a smaller bucket if you're going with this system. So long as you keep putting sawdust on top of it, I don't think it's going to make a difference how long that stuff stays in the can. Again, that's just from my experience, using them and then changing out the cans. And it seems to me like the larger can is a no hassle way to eventually have a full can, but I mean, it's going to take some time for you to get there.
So the one
maybe you're having issues with the amount of space you have available, and that's why you would want to consider a smaller can. But if you have the space available, I'd say stick with the larger cans. That's what I would do. I also wanted to say that this past summer, Otter, Katie, she was here and she was talking about this design called the 6-shooter, which was basically an assembly of 6 seats next to one another and a stationary small can underneath each one. But that really didn't get much further beyond the the chit chat phase, as far as I know. Yeah, there's Otter right there, right in the middle of the picture, and she was facilitating the Willow feeder retrofits and improvements over this past summer. She's the one who told me about this 6-shooter idea, if I recall correctly. But again, I don't think it moved further beyond the little sketch out phase. So I haven't heard from her in a while. I hope she's doing okay. If she's listening, hey there, what's going on? But again, stick with the larger cans, I guess, to answer that question. But
the one logistical issue with the larger cans, of course, is their height. And so that's why in some of these situations, it's like you got to build stairs up because you got to sit on top, right? So that's part of the reason people have been like, oh, a 5 bucket's convenient. I can slide it under something that is normal seated, right? Now, the way I've solved that problem in the past is I've actually, when I've built something into a house, is we build the floor down so that the larger can fit underneath and it's accessible from the outside. We've got a system where literally you walk in, so it's accessible from the inside. You walk in, you sit down, something like a normal commode, and then there's depth underneath when we built the building to accept the larger can, and there's a system to just easily pull it out from the outside. There's a hatch from the outside down almost at ground level. You take it, you pull it out, and the whole thing just comes up and goes out, and you replace it, right? So it provides a more quote unquote normal looking bathroom experience at normal height, and it allows you to replace from the outside. And I've done that design before.
I don't know. I'd be curious to see how they do. If you're going to do maybe even something that's broader but shallower, so that way things are more normal. But again, it comes back to the whole thing about there's a lot of room for a lot of testing on a lot of different ideas. And so I hope that thousands of people pour in and do all that testing, and we learn so much more. I got one more thing. So I think first of all, I think Stephen's name is Jesus. Is that right? I think that's Katie there.
Hey, Katie. I was looking at those. Yeah.
But one last thing I want to point out is that all of the people that are in on the call today are part of the Pi program or the Patreon stuff. And so we're really doing I know that Liv is really helping out today, and she's gung-ho on getting people signed up for the Pi program. So everybody who's signed up for Pi has got access to this. And but we're going to make this free on YouTube after we're done recording it. So, Permies.com/Pi for those people that are interested in getting the Pi. It's $3 a month. And, and it comes with a long list of whiz-bangeries. So, I think it's probably well worth it. This has, been a fun thing. I think I know just personally, I love the Pi because of all the features that you get added to the software, and I'm on the software all day long every day, so I like that. But all right, anything else?
One more thing I would say about the Pi program is Hermes is free, and the Pi, if you buy Pi, it helps to pay the server costs. And Paul, just bankrolls this whole thing, so you just pay a little bit per month. You're making it more possible for him to offer the free stuff that he offers to everyone. So I think
with all the work that Liv has been putting in, and I think you, Smith, have put a bunch of work into it too to get the Pi program off the ground in the last couple of months. I think we are like within 20% of the server bill. So I haven't looked at it exactly, but I think we're getting close to the server bill. That would be just delightful if I didn't have to pay the server bill every month, and it was paid for by the people that use Permies. Okay. I think we got to call it a wrap because we've been at this for 3 hours.
Wowzers.
If you like this sort of thing, come on out to the forums at Permies.com, where we talk about willow feeders, homesteading, and permaculture all the time.
Hi, this is Mark. Sometimes talking to a friend or family member about permaculture can be met with a blank stare if it's all new to them. A great way to explain some of it can be over a card game using permaculture playing cards, which each have interesting facts with quality illustrations and descriptions. A wide range of people, places, and things, all related to permaculture, can be found on the permaculture playing cards at richsoil.com/cards.